Hey there, and welcome to the ADK Rock and Metal channel. Today I'm joined by the wonderful Anna Kjellberg from the band Drain STH, plus many, many more, which we will come to. We're going to talk mainly about Drain, of course. Welcome to the channel.
Hey Dave, what's up? Nice to be here.
It's great to have you on the channel. I know we were just talking off beforehand. It's always nice to have a bit of a chat about other things before we got started. So it's feels like old friends catching up already.
Oh yeah, big time.
Right, let's talk about Drain STH. That's where we want to get started, and we need to understand the origins of the band, because this is a band very close to my heart, whether it be through coming across with I Don't Mind and Crack the Liar's Smile, off of Horror Wrestling, and catching you all live in London at the Little Water Rats pub in King's Cross back in, I assume it's around 95 era, 96, something like that.
Yeah, ish.
I think it was just before the actual Horror Wrestling dropped. It may have been around that sort of time, or just before it had actually come out. It might have been a promo, and we're going to come to that as well. But I want to understand the formation of Drain, because I know that yourself and some of the other members were in the previous bands as well. So can you just take me through a little bit about how the different members came together in previous bands?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Martina and Flavia, they had been playing together for a number of years before I joined. So they had a band called Aphrodite. They were pretty successful in Sweden. It was more like basic rock, like AC/DC style-ish. And so I joined Aphrodite, I think it was in '89. And we kept touring in Sweden for a bit, for maybe a year or so. And then that singer bailed, as they do.
Okay.
And we kind of regrouped and found a new singer and created a new band called Ragdoll. Style-wise, maybe a little bit in between, I would say, Aphrodite and later Drain. So it was more like maybe Led Zeppelin, Sabbath, maybe a little tag Guns N' Roses or something, at the time. So yeah, we also played a bunch of shows in Sweden, in Stockholm, and we recorded a lot of music, and we kept going, and then that singer bailed. Surprise!
Right.
As they do. So again, we took a little bit of a break, actually, for maybe 6 months, and then we realized it was time to get our shit together, which we did, and started looking for another singer.
These bloody singers, I tell you, they're awful.
No, they're a hassle.
Get rid of them. Just be instrumentalists.
Yeah, should have.
Yeah. So when Maria, she came in. Now she's previously did guitars as well in other bands, did she? Or she was good. So did she bring anything musically from a guitar point of view into when Drain, or was she just purely focusing from a vocal point of view?
No, she came in from a vocal point, really. She didn't play guitar really at all. I don't remember if she did that at all when it came to songwriting and stuff. I mean, obviously never on recordings or live. But I mean, it was a good thing having a singer that actually do play an instrument, because I think it's easier for to communicate music and structures and songwriting and everything like that. And but I mean, overall, yeah, she came in as a singer.
And did you have anything with the previous bands? Because obviously there is a point where you kind of do a band and you've been writing songs, you're passionate about them. Were there any of those sort of songs that you were like, do you know what, these would fit really well into Drain, and kind of you sort of migrated stuff over, or was it just a clear cut?
It was a clear cut. I mean, I would say Ragdoll and Drain are just two different animals. There was nothing that we could use really from the Ragdoll time. So we started really fresh when it comes to Drain.
So how sick were you of the Alice in Chains comparison? We have to ask that, because it's the one that comes up every single time we talk about Drain. It's Alice in Chains, female Alice in Chains.
Alice in Drain?
Alice in Drain, yes. It's such a frustrating comparison, but you must have had it so often. How did you deal with that?
Well, it is just a part of the game that you will be compared to other bands, especially when you start out. But I mean, every song you write and every record you make, it's going to be compared to something. And obviously we got the Alice in Chains thing, which is kind of fair, but also kind of not, because I think we had so much more than that. We definitely we were influenced by this whole Seattle sound, but I think we also had, the heaviness of bands like Black Sabbath. We had the riffing like Pantera-ish. We had the grooves of I don't know, like Sepultura-ish. We had so much more. So to just compare us straight off with Alice in Chains, I don't think it's fair. With that said, obviously there is some similarities and there is some vocal harmonies and yada yada that is similar, but there was also so many other bands that had that. I mean, at the same time as we came out, you had the Godsmack and you had the Stained, you had the Creed, you had the Candlebox.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of bands at that time that were influenced by the Seattle sound, which makes sense because there was something new that came out, and it changed the music scene in many ways.
So it reminded me when we caught up in 95 is the estimate, I guess it was, at the show at the Water Rats. There wasn't really anyone doing what you were doing, especially like an all-female group that came out. It was either the all-female groups were kind of the equivalent of the Runaways, and it was that kind of pop rock, or you had things like maybe L7, or it was very punky. No one was kind of giving you that grungy, dirty, almost semi-doom element of hard rock. So it was really inspiring to see it when we came to the Water Rats. But you were almost an unknown quantity. It was a headline show. And for anyone that's never knows what the Water Rats is, it's probably... The stage is definitely smaller than this room. And the venue was probably about twice the size of this room, if I remember rightly. It's just a very, very narrow, small pub with red curtains like it was a cabaret show or something like that.
Yeah,
the stage, I think you had a stage that was maybe half a step in height. That was about all that separated you from the audience, which was amazing to sort of see a band that close, right up in your face. But do you remember how that particular show or other shows around that time came about? Because you were an unknown quantity over in the UK.
Right. I mean, it's a long time ago, but I would say that we were probably there doing some promotion stuff and meeting up with the UK label and doing interviews and setting everything up for the release of Horror Wrestling that was to come out like a year later. So I think they set that up like as some kind of a showcase type thing.
Right. Because yes, I do remember the one other band on that bill that I remember was Scrap Iron Scientists, which were just an amazing band.
Yeah, they were super cool.
They all just looked like they'd just been to the weights gym. They were just all absolutely ripped, covered in baby oil out there with dreadlocks out of there. And they were just like, they scared the hell out of everyone, but they were amazing live.
I actually have a photo of us with Scrap Iron Scientists. And this is the only reason why I remember all of it.
Unfortunately, I've only ever found a couple of bits from like some live footage of theirs, but they're still an amazing band. I love sort of going back. They did a little bit and then they kind of disappeared, but there's still a love for them. You can find them on YouTube, but no official releases, unfortunately.
Right.
Talking about horror wrestling now, horror wrestling, as I said before, it's a grungy. There's the elements of Sabbath. It's got some really interesting time signatures in the sense that it's not standard like your standard rock 4/4 tempo. Oh, here's a verse, here's a chorus, here's a verse, midsection. Double up the chorus, there's your outro sort of mentality. There's a lot more thought process going into it.
Yeah.
It can be thought of as sometimes as a quite dark and depressive album, but also it can feel depressive, like with songs like Stench. that's quite a depressing song, but it's an amazing song at the same time. Where did this come from? Was it because you all came across as very positive people, but these were quite dark songs that you were writing on this album?
Yeah, I guess we were pretty positive people in general, but I don't know, this is just what came out of us as musicians, as artists. Like, we didn't have the need to write about happy times. You know what I mean? So this is just what came out, both musically and lyrically. And I can't even explain it. I guess everybody is carrying a certain amount of darkness inside, and we just let it out in the shape of horror wrestling.
Because it's one of those ones where I go through it because I'm always looking for like the music videos, because you've got the I Don't Mind, and we had, was it Crack the Liar's Smile, I think also had a video off that particular album.
That's correct.
But you don't have many out, because it also with Freaks of Nature as well, there wasn't that many music videos. Especially in the day of MTV2, Scars, Kerrang TV, and especially being an all-female band, you would have thought that the record label would be going, let's get visuals out there, let's push videos. So why wasn't there more videos done for the band?
That's kind of a good question, but I think a part of it was money. When we recorded the I Don't Mind video, that blew the fucking video budget out of the water. Yeah. It's kind of a funny story, actually, because already back when we were in Ragdoll, me and Martina went to Los Angeles trying to hunt down management, etc. And we ended up at a cocktail party situation where we met Wayne Isham, who later directed the I Don't Mind video. He was then huge with Anti-Sandman, and he had worked with Richie Sambora, etc., etc. And, you know, he promised that if we ever got signed, he was going to do our video. Fast forward a couple of years, and Drain is signed, and we tell our label to call Wayne Isham to do the video, and they did. And he said, nah, or his people said, we don't work with budgets under $200,000. And that's not what we had. So me and Martina wrote a fax with a Sharpie. Hey,
we may have to explain to some people what a fax is. Google what a fax is.
You know, hey Wayne, it's Anna and Martina. Remember, you promised to make our video, and now it's the time. And we sent it to him, and he actually replied, and he said, "Yeah, I did promise you that. So let's do it. How much money do you have?" So yeah, that was our entire video budget that went to that. Basically.
Which was I'm trying to remember which out of the two. I'm fairly certain it was Crack the Liar Smile. Which one had the helicopter in it?
Yeah, that's Crack. Yeah.
That was Crack. So seriously, you could have saved some money there and not had a helicopter in a video. I still haven't worked out what the helicopter's purpose was in the video, but
yeah, who knows? But yeah, we made that in Sweden in some airplane hangar situation. It was Claes Åhlund from Teddy Bears, if you know about that band, that directed that for us. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I want to move on to the name change, because you had to, I think it was on the Freaks of Nature, you had to change the name from Drain to Drain STH due to another band obviously having the name Drain. But the STH bit, now I obviously know the background behind it, but for people at home, there is a lots of different theories about what STH stood for. Now, I think you guys, you all kind of fed into that by deciding to give different stories when you did interviews. Was that true?
Yeah, that's true. Because everybody kept asking about it, and you know, Stockholm is what it is, but it sounds kind of boring. So
yeah,
Satan's tiny helpers, silly tree climbing hippies. What else? I don't even remember. We had a bunch of them that we kept saying, different every time.
Straight to Hell was the other one.
Straight to Hell.
Straight to Hell. That was a good one for it.
Yeah, that was the one we used the most, probably. Yeah, no, it was kind of annoying that there was this other band that was called Drain, and they had albums out already, and we were on tour in Europe, and we got a call that, you know, we're going to print the US edition like next week. We need another name or add something to the name. So
yeah,
we were on the road with Clawfinger and Rammstein at the time. And while we were on stage, they were taking this problem to new heights. So they just came up with all kinds of shit. And when we came back to our dressing room, you know, usually there's like a sign with a band name on it. We had 50 signs with different versions of Drain that they had printed out while we were playing. It was kind of fun.
Pick one.
Yeah.
That's crazy, because nowadays, even in our local area for our sort of music scene, if I search one of the band names, I'm trying to think which one I was thinking of. There was a band that came up, and I did a search for them because they were doing a music competition, and there was at least 7 or 8 bands that all came up with the same name, and they're all just playing around the area. No relation to them, but no one cares anymore. They're like, well, unless you're probably in the big arenas, then it becomes a bit more of an issue. But for the smaller bands, no, they just don't care, do they? Use whatever name they can get hold of. So Freaks of Nature. So when I was listening to Freaks of Nature the other day, and I was listening to like Simon Says and Black, Into My Mind, stuff like that, it feels, although it still has some of the dark elements that you had on horror wrestling, it doesn't feel as gritty. I'd say it feels a much more commercially focused album. What did you go into writing that album with a more commercial viewpoint of we need more of a standardized structures, or we need to think about how this is going to be listened to a wider audience and more radio play? Was it any of that in the back of your mind when you were doing that?
Yeah, I would say there was some of that going on. I mean, at the time that we wrote Freaks of Nature, I mean, we had been constantly on the road with horror wrestling for years. You know, you pick up new things, the music scene changes. The music scene in the US was quite different from what was back here in Europe. And, you know, I think this whole thing with like using samples and loops and sequencing of different kinds, that kind of blew up around that time too. And we wanted to incorporate that as well in our sound. But of course, we also had shorter time to write the album. It was also kind of schizophrenic in the way that we started recording here in Stockholm with one producer, and then we got this tour with Megadeth in the US. So we left in the middle of the recording and did that tour for a couple of months. And then we came back to pick up. And then that producer had already started working with another band.
Right.
So we, you know, had to find somebody else that we could work with that worked out with us. So we did, and we also went in and out of several different studios. So I mean, it was a little bit scattered in the whole creation of Freaks of Nature, but yeah, I think it was just kind of a natural development of our sound, really.
Because how does that work then from a writing process for? Because I know Drain, if you look back at the sort of tour dates, Drain was constantly out on the road. Whether you were playing with Sabbath or if you were doing any of the festivals or Ozfest, any of that sort of thing, you were always out doing shows. So getting down time to actually sit down and go, right, we need to start writing. Were you able to do writing on the road and come up with ideas and record bits and bobs on the road? Or was it a case of we need to just stop touring for a little bit of time and just focus on the writing and take 6 weeks out and just get on with and get an album? How did it work for you?
Yeah, it was like that, what you just said. We were not that kind of band that had a studio in the back lounge that a lot of bands do, and all credit to them, but that just didn't work for us. So we didn't write anything on the road, actually. And yeah, we had to take some time off and just really focus on songwriting and get this together.
Because did you... I'm thinking about this in a lot of ways, is that there's always like a minimum amount of songs that you need for an album.
Yeah.
You kind of go, well, I've got 6 songs. You're like, well, we can't release a 6-song album unless we can make them a bit longer.
Nowadays you can.
You can now. I've seen people do a 1-song album that's 40 minutes long, which is that's proper doom. But with the fact that you had a limited time, did you kind of have the mindset of we need to get this amount of songs done? Or did you just write until you get to a certain point and go, right, we've written songs, now let's go through them and pick what needs to go on the album, what's the best ones? How did it kind of go with you?
Probably kind of a little bit of a combination of that. I mean, we just kept writing and writing and writing, and some songs, as you know, as a musician yourself, I mean, some songs just never take the shape you want, and they don't make the cut. And you know, sometimes you use them for spare parts.
Yes, that is very true.
Yeah. So you know, it was just like a constant songwriting process for us. And also at this time we experimented with writing with other people for the first time. We had never done that before, and that kind of came up. So first Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath, we had gotten to know him pretty well during Ozfest. And at first, he asked if we wanted to be a part of. He was making a solo album, and he had a lot of different artists on every song. And at first, it was discussed whether we should play one of those songs. But then our recording came up first, and we called him up and asked if he wanted to write a song with us for us instead. And that is what happened, and that turned into the song Black. It sounds very Tony Iommi, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
He doesn't play on it like on the album. It's all Flavia, but
okay.
The riffing is his for sure.
Right, he's
the riff master.
The riff master himself. Because there is one song on there that it was very, very popular live. I have to be honest, my least favorite song on the album.
Oh, really?
But, yes, Simon Says. Obviously had the throw your hands in the air rap in there, which it's a fairly cliched one. I don't even know if it was cliched at the time, but it was very cliched. Nowadays, if you say that, you've heard it. So loads of people use that kind of classic rap line. And it was something very different for Drain to go off and have kind of a rap chorus. Where was this influence of other people coming into the band as far as like writing influences? Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, that came from Max Martin, who wrote that song with us, and also another song on the album. And he is an old friend of ours from years back. And at this time, he had great success with Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys and whatever else not. And, we ran into him, and he wanted to write rock again. And since we were up for recording, we were like, all right, let's see how that could work out. We had actually worked with him before with Ragdoll.
Right, okay.
It was not the first time that we worked with him. He's brilliant, and he's so much fun to work with. He's a very funny guy, and you're like basically laughing the entire time. And he's a genius with music, as we all know. I mean, we all know his catalog at this point. So yeah, the whole rap thing came from him, and I think that he saw into the future, as he does, that this was a cool thing to do at the time. And we loved the way it sounded. It did turn out a little bit of a problem when we played live, of course. We couldn't really deliver that.
Can't bring him out with you all the time.
Yeah, well, it's this, when we recorded it too, we had big plans on having Eminem or somebody recording this part. And it was this American guy living in Sweden, Herbie Krishlow, that actually recorded it. And he has this, you know what it sounds like. So yeah, we couldn't really deliver that, so we had to keep having the tape going. Also, I mean, the crowds, they just loved this song, and they were singing along, so it kind of worked out pretty good. They just took that part.
It is a very good sing-along part.
It is.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the imagery of the band, because if I try to kind of think back around all the female-based bands that I can remember, they were either kind of slobby grungy, there are some that were just kind of really down, like very punk looking, or they went the opposite direction with corsets and fishnet stockings, and nowadays the look of a lot of the female rock musicians is quite extreme. To what you see. I mean, it's soft porn in some cases of what you're basically getting. So, but when you saw Drain kind of came out in combats, black t-shirts. It was just very casual, to the same as what the audience would be wearing. You didn't do the whole. I don't remember you ever doing like wearing Metallica t-shirts or.
No.
You never wore like band t-shirts and stuff. It was very almost uniform black in some shape or form, but it was just very casual. Was this a calculated decision by you to kind of be like very neutral, or how did that come about?
I don't know how calculated it was really. I don't think we really sat down and discussed it and made a plan. I think that's what we were wearing at the time off stage, and then a version of that on stage. You know, again, it's like, it's interesting how the focus is on women, on what they wear and what they look like. And I think maybe a part of us kind of wanted to get away a little bit from that, and not be so stereotypical female rock band, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, I don't think that this kind of miniskirt stiletto thing worked really well with, you know, stench buried in my body.
I couldn't even imagine that.
You know what I mean? So this worked out better, but it was kind of a couple of weird things that happened, like with our label when it comes to the way we looked. Like when we came to the States, and the American label, they didn't really know what kind of box to put us in. You know, like you said, a lot of female bands have been traditionally either like the kind of punky style or the stiletto fishnet style. And here we are, like four tall Swedish blondes with deep voices singing about stench, and they just didn't really know how to handle us, I think.
Right.
And at first they even said that it wasn't believable that we looked the way we looked and sounded the way we looked. So they wanted to chop our hair off. They brought in stylists with super ugly clothes that they wanted us to try on and wear. And we're like, hell no, you signed this band. And this is
flannel shirts.
No, it was just very strange stuff. So they wanted to kind of uglify us somehow. And we were just saying totally no to that. But on the other hand, they booked us up for doing like editorial pieces in fashion like magazines where we were actually showing clothes. We did runway stuff. So it was a very schizophrenic thing. Like I don't think they knew what to do with us.
Because it's a real step change when you went to Freaks of Nature, because you had the cover art with the fire, and you're all in dresses, very different look to what we had from the. Now, I didn't get a chance to see you live from the Freaks of Nature, so I don't know if your live look changed at all. Or you just carried on, but was it the idea from the label to go, we want you on the cover because we think you'll sell more albums if we've got you on the cover? Was there anything like that coming from them?
Yeah, if I remember right, I think so. That was probably brought up, and you know, at that point, we thought it kind of made sense because when we released Horror Wrestling in the States, we had no pictures on it. We had no press pictures even. So now we kind of turned that around and put ourselves on the cover. But I think the way we did it with those long dresses and the fire and like this whole vibe of that photo, it looks more like kind of like a pagan ritual than like four women trying to be super hot and sexy. I think we are super hot and sexy still, but in a different kind of way with a different output.
And was the fire real?
Oh yeah. Okay. The fire was real. It was insane. There was this little man in the background like turning on the gas thing. And it was so hot. We had blisters on our backs afterwards. Everybody thinks it's done in the computer afterwards, but no, it's real.
Nowadays it is. Nowadays it's all Adobe Premiere done.
So much nowadays, but you couldn't then.
You can AI generate everything now. So when I think about the seeing you live, and specifically from your point of view, because it's not so much with Flavia, but when I remember you playing live, you did a lot of mouthing of words. So you sing along and you sing at the audience a lot.
Yeah.
Now, was this again something you were thinking? Because I know from doing it with my band, we talk a lot about stagecraft, and every time we talk about, well, what are you doing? You can't be in your own internal world and just looking at your bass or playing your guitar and think about just what you're doing there. You got to think about what the audience is seeing. Yeah. So when you're singing along to the audience, was that something that you were thinking, I want to really connect with them, or is that just how you naturally are? You just like to sing along? And
It just happened. I didn't even know at first. I kind of noticed when I started seeing videos of the shows. I'm like, wow, what am I doing? But I think it's just a natural thing that happens. You're on stage and you're feeding energy from the crowd, and you're just sending that energy back, and you're just into the music, into the whole thing. So it just kind of happened, and the fans they gave me the name of the evil bass face,
Yes.
which I guess is kind of true.
You did look like you had an attitude sometimes, just
Sorry.
scowling out at the audience.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the band was constantly touring, and then you kind of came up to around sort of 2000s, and then the band decided to kind of, after the Freaks of Nature tour, part ways. Was this a case of the stylization change? Because obviously, with your style was kind of part grunge, part doom. There was a much darker side. Around 2000, we're really into the big part of new metal. We've got metalcore kicking in. These are the most popular genres. So was that part of your decision making, that basically the style of music you would have been playing at the time was not the genre that was the biggest hype? Or were there other reasons for the band splitting at that point?
Oh, it was definitely other reasons. I mean, I think that the style of music we were playing have continued. I mean, a lot of other bands that came up at the same time as we did, like I mentioned before, like Godsmack or something, for example, that are not too far from what we were doing, have become huge since. So I think if we would have continued, it would have been going just fine. But it was a weird time there in the end of '99. Like you said, we had been on the road. We've been grinding on the road for years and years. And at that time, we had a little bit of a thing with our record company, like tour support was running out, and they had focused, we thought, too much on the first single of the album. And when Simon Says was about to come out with a rap, there was no money left, really. And, it was just like a weird funk for us at the time.
Yeah.
And we were probably kind of tired and worn out from all this. And on top of it, Maria had met Tony Iommi and become, they were a couple, and she was probably more tired than anybody of this whole thing. So she wanted out and, move to England and do other things. So here we go again with those singers. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah.
So it was horrible. It was like somebody pulled the rug under our feet, and there was nothing we could do about it.
So with Maria obviously then stepping out from it, was there a temptation as the rest of the band to kind of go, right, let's just get another singer in and then carry on as Drain?
We, of course, discussed that, but I think it's at that point, with that kind of level of success and that many sold records, I think it's hard to get another singer, and like the voice is the hardest thing to replace, and it's going to change the whole vibe of the band and the whole sound. So we kind of deserted that idea. I mean, we all know bands that have tried to do that, and look at Drowning Pool, for example. I mean, every time it's like a brand new band.
Yeah.
Always the same members in general, So, I mean, instrumental members. We decided not to do that. There was other things too. I mean, we were signed to a Swedish label at first, and then they sold us on a license deal to Europe and to the US. So we, like money-wise and recouping-wise, we were in a fucking black hole. So that was also another reason.
So what then kind of happened for yourself then? Obviously with Drain then kind of being put to the side and going, well, that's now finished. You don't lose the passion for music. So what did you go on to do then from your point of view?
Well, me and Martina, the drummer from Drain, we decided to leave Sweden and go to Los Angeles and see what we could do there. So we kind of moved there without knowing we were moving there, 2 suitcases each, and we were going to stay for a while.
Yeah.
It turned into quite a while. We started a new band called Superfix, where Martina was actually singing instead, because we figured maybe she would stay.
She had the commitment level.
Right. And we recruited a couple of guys from a defunct Los Angeles Hollywood band called Sinistar, playing drums and guitars. And we borrowed a studio from Snake Sabo from Skid Row.
Oh, yeah.
We recorded a lot of songs there, and he was very helpful. And we had a management, and we did some showcases, and I think we thought that we could ride on the Drain fame
a
little bit. I don't think we realized the competition we were in in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, like there is 25 bands to a dozen. And we did some showcases, we got some offers, but there was nothing that really worked out for us. So we did that for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden I got a phone call from a band in New York called Hansel and Gretel.
Okay, yep.
Kind of an industrial metal type band. And so I went there and rehearsed with them a little bit, went on tour. I ended up staying with them for almost 3 years.
Right.
Recorded an album with them, and we also toured quite a bit. And that was a lot of fun. I don't think I've ever had as much fun with a band as I did with Hansel and Gretel. Amazing people. Still to this day, if I'm in a bad mood, I call one of them, and I will be laughing within 30 seconds. It's amazing.
It's great, yeah.
Yeah. So did that, and then when that kind of era was over, then I got a phone call from Al Jorgensen from Ministry. We had worked with Ministry, both with Drain and with Hansel and Gretel. So we were pretty good friends. He was putting together his old side project called Revolting Cocks. Been sleeping for the last 13 years or so, and so he asked if I wanted to be the revolting cunt this summer. How could I say no?
Of course not, no.
So I jumped on that and went down to El Paso, Texas for rehearsals. So we, Revolting Cocks were opening for Ministry on that tour, and it was a crazy tour. It was a lot of fun. We had Joey Jordison and what's his name? Yeah, playing. Jordison was playing drums for Ministry.
That's cool.
It was a great time, crazy time. Fast forward, 2007, I joined a Los Angeles-based band called Opiate for the Masses. I'll be recording and touring to follow. And, shortly after that, I went back to Sweden. And I did one more tour, actually. In 2011, I was asked to join a British artist called Liven, who did a big US tour opening for Alice Cooper. So I was on that as well. So it's been a lot of touring, and all this combined, and I've done more than 1,000 shows in the US over the years. It's insane.
So was that the last time you went out on sort of touring or playing? When was the last time you played live?
Yeah, I guess it must have been that Liven tour in 2011.
So the question has to be, do you miss it?
I do miss it, but I'm a very pragmatic and realistic person.
Yeah.
Like what we had then, what was going on then, was amazing, especially with Drain. I mean, all the other bands to follow, I was more of a hired gun situation, and it was good. I had a lot of fun. It was not all bad, but it's not really my thing. I like to be in a band like we were with Drain. I want to be a part of songwriting. I want to be a part of the business side of it and everything. Just kind of sitting back and just get up on stage and play bass is not enough. So, but I mean, all those years and everything that I experienced and all the people you meet and everything, I mean, it was really, really great times. But, that was then, now is now. Those times are not coming back.
No.
Starting a new band is difficult. It takes a lot of time. You have to find the right members, first of all, obviously, but then just to get that, off the ground and make it happen, it's a little bit of a lottery, and it's a lot of hard work, and it takes a long time. So I think I'm done with that.
Do you still have any contact with any of the members of Drain?
Yeah, for sure, all of them.
That's good. It's worse when you lose contact with people, and you've spent such a period of your time together, and a very intimate time as well, because you're on a tour bus at that time.
No, we stay in touch. I mean, obviously not every day, but we stay in touch, and we run into each other, especially me and Martina, that are both in Stockholm, and going to shows and stuff, and all the American bands that come through. We usually go together and hang out with our friends from back then. It's like you're finally hanging out with people from your own planet.
Yes. I have one final question. What is the thing you don't miss about being in a band and playing?
Wow, that's a tough one, because there's probably a few things, but
it's always easy to list the things you love about being in a band, but there's also, I know for me what my least favorite one is, but I'd be intrigued to know from you.
What was it?
Well, I see, for me, mine is the sitting around waiting all day.
Yeah,
that's the bit I hate.
No, but I was just gonna say that this whole sitting in the tour bus, waiting for the show, waiting for sound check. You're parked behind a tall building, and the satellite doesn't work. You're in a strange city. You don't know where to go to even find food. I mean, yeah, that whole thing of waiting around, of hurry up and wait.
Yeah. I think the worst one is when you have the sound check and then find out that you're not playing for another 6 hours, and you go.
And then you always have to have dinner during sound check. You always have dinner with a fucking kick drum in your ear. I mean, yeah. So yeah, there is aspect of that part of touring that I don't miss. And I remember when I took that tour with Liven, I was itching a little bit. I hadn't been out on the road since I think 2008 or 9 or something at that point. So I was like, yeah, it sounds like fun. They have great, double wide bus, and we're gonna be opening for Alice Cooper. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, and there we sit, in the bus waiting, and I just remembered how boring that can be.
That's the bit that people don't tell you about. They always think it's like, oh, you're the rock star, you're out on the road, it's great, it's parties, and then you also have to. They always go, well, nowadays it's less so, but there was always the talk of, oh, it'd be fun, you're always out partying and drinking. You're like, yeah, but you've also still got to play a show, so you're also moderating, and you know that you can't really relax, you can't completely go off the rails. You've got to have a couple of beers, and you're like, I've got to just tap it now because I've got to wait. Got to be sober enough to play the drums or play guitar, and afterwards you can go and lose it.
We never drank any alcohol before show.
Really?
Never. We did after.
You made up for it afterwards.
Yeah, but never before.
Well, Anna, I just wanted to say a big thank you for obviously checking in and speaking to me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm always in the back of my head wondering nowadays there's always these bands doing reunion tours, and I'm just sitting there, I'm waiting for the day that Drain suddenly they're going to go out on a reunion. So you now need to go, now that you speak to the rest of the band, you got to make it happen. Just tell Maria she can.
What I can do.
Get Tony to come out. He can support and bring his band with him. It's fine.
Yeah. Why not?
Have support's fine.
We'll see what happens with that. And thanks for having me. This was great fun.
It's been great to have you. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.